Hi everybody and welcome to the junk room where we create whatever. Today we're continuing on with the horse themed junk journal that I am making for a special friend. Part 1, I marked the holes in the first signature, which was the white one. And here I am trying to line the second signature up to match those same holes and just making sure everything is lined up as best as I can get it. Lots of pokey tools and awls that I used to keep the paper secure because it was shifting all over the place. And I struggled with this 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I must admit it was painful. Why I tried doing it for the first time in this junk journal is beyond me. But here I am. I thought about taking this part out, but I thought, nope, I'm going to leave it in because I cannot be the only person in the whole world who struggled to learn the 5-hole pamphlet stitch. The pain is real. So I think I'm getting the hang of it now. Things are just not going well. I've had to start and stop and start and stop and poke so many times. So a little tip I learned, that when you're using your awl, push it all the way through to make those holes bigger, because the thread will kind of fill the holes in and you need bigger holes to make the job easier. So I think I'm getting it. Nope. Pull it out again and try again. But I keep at it and eventually I do get it until the center, the final one. And it kept splitting the thread. And so I'm using that pokey tool and the needle, and I'm just trying to get it so it's perfectly snug in there and not splitting, so I can tighten it all up. So here I am tightening it all up, holding my breath, tying my first knot to secure this in place. So I do a second and a third one for good measure, trim it up and breathe a sigh of relief. Whew. Now I have to do it again. Here I am just lining up all the paper, the pages, everything, line it up so that it's where I want it all to be. And then I get to the center, and this little piece of parchment paper is so piddly and panickety that I just toss it aside. Maybe I'll use a piece of paper. I don't know. In the end, I use a full-size parchment paper with the colored paints that I'd been using throughout the journal. But here it is. Whew. It's looking beautiful. I love it. So here's a dangle I made out of ribbon and lace and bead dangles. Here's some charms that I showed in part 1. And I love it. It's full of texture and different things to feel and touch, and hidden things like a string of brown beads, as well as tucked in there is a string of turquoise and brown beads, and it's all done on a paper clip tucked between the 2 signatures. I love the feel of this journal. I use eyelets front and back for the closure, with tying it up with leather, and there's room to grow as my friend adds things to it. The front is burlap and a picture of a girl riding her horse done in stained glass with her tossing her graduation cap in the sky, as this is a high school graduation gift for my friend. And also added to the cover is that lace that looks like horseshoes. Here we have a belly band that I used out of the 4 squares of ephemera. Her picture is behind it of her JKSK graduation picture because she was in my class. This ribbon on this page reminded me of a horse's mane, so I used that a couple of times. Lots of space to journal on Here is a pocket I made out of lace. That was kind of neat because it's a little bit see-through. Quotes on all the pages where she's riding or with a horse. This belly band on the right I made with a napkin that had those horses' heads that I showed in part 1 with some lace on this brown paper bag. The pockets here are made from book pages with just a little bit of lace. To the right, I have all my ephemera pieces that I'm going to add in a few minutes. And just another quote to show as I use them throughout the whole journal, hoping that it brought encouragement to my friend. And so this journal has a little bit of her journey as into the horse world, the equestrian horse world, from when she was 4 or 5 with her first horse. And just watching her grow up has been such a huge blessing and privilege. Here on the right, I made this pocket out of a Trivial Pursuit card with a little cluster with a butterfly. And the left side page got wet, and that's why there's green spots. But I fix it in the end a little bit. Some fuzzy yarn, I guess, on the left side with this beautiful textured cluster that's glued all down and not used for a tuck or pocket. Here's a picture used for a pocket of those 2 horses that started it all. When I introduced her to 45 and the kid, and she fell in love with horses. Polaroid picture used as a tuck spot. Here is an envelope that matches one of the cards, and so I just sliced down the right side and made it into a pocket. Another quote at the bottom, and then on the right, these pockets are made from a junk mail envelope with a little cluster on the front for decoration, with some lace down the side. This pocket is made from a circle. Another picture from that napkin. If I haven't said why there's washi tape over her face, it's just to protect her identity as she is young in some of the photos. I do have permission from her mom to use these photos, and I do have permission from her to use the video on YouTube. There is one of those materials, the square made out of materials, I should say. Another tuck spot there with lace down the side, a card, another quote with some turquoise cowboy boots, and I added butterflies. I just love that page. Here she is with her horse, and it's one of my favorite pictures of her. Some more lace. She just has such a special bond with her horses. She competes in the equestrian world and wins in every competition she enters. Here's one of her horses, just hamming it up. Her and her horse hamming it up. Again, just lots and lots of writing space. I told her that every inch of it could be used to write on and not to be afraid to write on all the pages. Again, that little bird on the fence post shows up. Card that unfolds. I love the field of wildflowers. That's the end. That's her grade 8 graduation picture. And then more pockets made out of book pages and a little cluster for decoration. All right, now we need to find spots for all this ephemera that I made. So I open it up and I start with an article from the horse magazine that I showed in part 1. It's a very humorous horse article, and so I just tea dyed it, wrinkled it up to make it look a little older, and put it in the side pocket for her to discover later. And then this is just tea dyed paper, and it unfolds, and there is a special note that I wrote for her specifically. Then in this pocket, I take some of my own horse pictures and I ink around them with my Jumbo Java. And this is a brand new little ink pad, and I realize that it's really juicy and the ink is going all over the place, so I wipe it down because I don't want to ruin the page behind it. And they fit perfectly in this little lace pocket. The playing cards that I showed in part 1, I used one of them for the cover of this little booklet. I stitched down the middle and just used different papers to create extra journaling spots and tucked it behind there. In these pockets made of book pages, I used some journal cards with her on it. Here's a tag that I made. That's using a scrapbook paper and just the horse from the napkin that I Mod Podged on. And I use one circle piece ephemera. Yay! I don't use a lot of circles. And then I just took the flowers that I did for this digi kit just for this project, cut them up and use them there, and perfect spot for 5 little pictures. Ink up another picture to put behind a tuck spot, and then another interest piece from the magazine that I tuck behind this belly band made out of book pages. Top it off with another picture of one of my horses. I use a guest check for this. I do a little collage on the front. I stitch around it. I put file folder between the 2 pages and fits perfectly in there. And the butterfly wings, you can't tell, but the green matches the wet paper on the left side of that. Now, what to put in this pocket? Could do this tag, but it's too big, so that's not going to work. I'll come back to that. Might fit here. Not my favorite. Maybe. No, it needs to go here. This is the perfect spot for this tag. And I just use some bigger cards, and that's got a collage of lots of pictures that I didn't use in that one little card. I don't know where I got that. It was in my stash. Just a horse picture, and then again some more pieces of ephemera with the wildflowers. Inking up. I don't ink everything, but I seem to need to ink up these horse pictures that were pictures of my horses. Just fill it up with some interesting pieces. That's the fabric on the left there, the square from that material. I think that's the only piece I ended up using. It's starting to get harder because I realize in the second signature there's not as many pockets as I made in the first. All right, well, this huge tag that I made, there's a hidden pocket that she'll discover. There's a little dangle with a ball pin, a sequin, and a stamp, and then some more stamps and some other materials there to make it more interesting with textures, and I put it in there for her to discover later. I don't think that's going to go there. It doesn't really fit, but it might fit here, and so it does. So I add some to the pockets, again inking, and I think I leave the bottom one empty just to show her that she could add something there. Okay, now I made large journal cards and some bigger tags out of wallpaper. This one here feels like leather, so I stitched around all of them and I tea dyed the paper, and that's what it's backed with. And I just used what I had in my stash left over from the cover. Some of it reminded me of the barn, and now I need to find spots for those pieces. And that's how I leave them. I don't put anything on them, on the front of them. So here's one of my little ones. I think I have two little ones. Yes, I do. That looks really good there. Now here I'm like, okay, I gotta find one of these that fits in the side pocket. And I thought for sure I did one that would fit there, but none of the ones in this pile work. So I'm like, I know I did one. Oh, here it is. That's why I didn't bring it over, because I botched the sewing and I don't like it. So I put it there to think about it. I'll come back to that. So there, that goes in the side pocket there. I still have that belly band for something. Oh, changing my mind. But I can do that. This almost takes as much time to sew in the signatures. Finding spots for everything. So trying different ones here, and then I just stick with the small one. I thought maybe I had another smaller tag for the bottom one, but I don't. So what am I going to do? All right. So I'm rearrange these a little bit and get that tag there for the top one. That works. And then there's another pocket. And so that fits perfectly. Now, got this pocket. That works there. Back to this one that I don't like. Do I use it? Don't I use it? In the end, I don't use any of the pale grayish ones. It just wasn't the right feel, I guess. Wasn't speaking to me. It's getting chunky and I love it. Feels so good. I could play with it for hours. So the finishing touch that I want to do is get some stamps out, and go through the journal to look for blank pages with nothing. Because if you're not a journaler, and if you never had a junk journal and you don't know what that is, a blank page can be very intimidating. So I kind of wanted to take that piece out, and to do that, I'm using stamps to just break that blank page and show where else you can write on. So they're very faint. It's an old black ink pad that I have, and these are brand new, never used stamps. So they're not stamping well. I should have used something behind each page because it's just stamping into softness of the journal. And most of it is out of camera range, so I apologize for that. That box was pushing my journal down and I didn't catch that. But here I am showing you my stamps. So just top corners, bottom corners, just to add that interest piece that doesn't add bulk and breaks that barrier of the blank page. And here she is. But I have to tell you, when I peeled the washi tape off from her face, it ripped those pages and I cried because I was done this journal. I had to figure out how to fix it. So how I fixed it was I printed the pages again, fussy cut out the pictures of her and glued them on top of the original. And if you aren't looking closely, you never know. She loved it. She's off to university, and I